Hello everyone, Fifi and Sam here for another Midweek Musings. How are we doing?
I'm really asking this. Like,
That's
it's
a
like, how
bit
many weeks
off.
can I just say, yeah, I'm shit. I'm shit. No, I've had, I've had quite a rough week this week. Got a little bit of
Same.
bad news, which hit me a bit harder than I was expecting. And yeah, a little bit of a struggle in my mind and where that kind of took me. And yeah, it's been, yeah, it's slightly more difficult than it has been, which, yay.
Woo! Just gets better and better, doesn't it? No.
How are
Yeah.
you?
Well, as we were chatting before, as we always do, and we've both been having a bit of bit of a dip, which I think is no surprise, to be honest, given the circumstances we find ourselves in. I've been a bit more um like looking at stuff going on out there, which tends to make me nosedive if I'm getting a bit too focused on it, because let's face it, there's not much good news out there, really, is there, when we're looking at how well this kind of links in actually to what you were just saying about your bad news. I don't know if you wanted to sort of share that. It's quite relevant, and I mean, without going into too much detail,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah. Um, yes, yeah, there was a death of someone I know, which did coincide within a few days of them having their booster. So obviously, you can never say for sure, whether that happened because of it or there was something else at play, and I'm not going to sit here and say, but a lot of us have our suspicions, as I'm sure, we see the news of people that were doing rather well, ticking along nicely, and they have the booster, and then a few days later, um, you know,
Yeah.
sadly they are no more, and it wasn't someone very close to me, but it's someone that I've known for kind of it's got to be 30 years that I've worked with. She had daughters that were a similar age to me, and it was something that just kind of hit home about the situation we find ourselves in.
Yeah.
We all know that this is happening. You're part of the died suddenly groups that are on
Yeah.
Telegram and on
Mm,
Facebook, although they keep being removed from Facebook, surprise,
mm,
surprise. But we're all aware, acutely aware, that on an unprecedented scale, people who are previously healthy, they're ticking along,
mm,
and then all of a sudden,
boom.
um and yeah, with it being someone I actually did personally know, although I haven't seen them in years,
Mm,
it kind of brought it home.
yeah.
And you do kind of, there's people a similar age to me waking up one morning without their mum, and it made me very, very sad. And you sit there, we've all got relatives um that have taken it, and my mind, it went down that road of, you
Yeah.
know when, if, am I
Gonna
gonna
get that
get
call. Yeah.
um and yeah, I mean, it's I think it's something a lot of people can relate to.
Yeah.
We're all kind of living through it, and I know there are a lot of people that are getting similar news, and it's, I suppose, it's something that as a collective, we kind of do need to talk about it, because we're all we're all human, and we can all say, I think many of us, you know well, it's nearly 2 years ago now when they first started rolling it out.
Mm,
We were aware, obviously, of the experimental nature of it, um, And subsequently there's been a lot of studies that are of course suppressed and censored and not, easily available or being made available to the masses about, what pathologists are finding and what, other studies are finding about the kind of effects that these things are having on people. We were all aware of that. We all, to some extent knew that what's happening now was coming, but it doesn't make it any easier.
No,
Sitting there and it,
no,
it doesn't make it easier,
no.
and
And
it
it's
still
just
hits you.
surreal, isn't it? We were talking about this earlier, just that, yeah, to actually be in it, watching this unfold. As we knew that this was going to happen. And I was saying as well that even, pre the jab thing, just the whole start of the scam, we'd known for years, many of us, that something like this was coming. It was coming, and we've been warning about it, talking about it. But still, when it actually hits, there's almost this kind of fracture in your reality, really, because like even now we've got this all going on, and yet there is this semblance of normal life, and it's so unbalancing. It's so you can't get it straight in your head, because yeah, you're getting the kids ready to go off to school, they're playing with their mates, you go shopping, you do all those things that you've always done, but underneath all of this is this absolute, this boiling insanity, and we know it's there, and it's not even that you're pretending it's not there, but because you are still having to live life, but this is constantly running alongside it. It's no wonder that we have these
Yeah,
moments of really having a dip, a slide, whatever it is. And I think just honor where you're at, instead of getting into beating yourself up for feeling depressed or helpless, or we've talked about it loads of times, haven't we, that actually it's it's that thing, isn't it, that actually kind of, if you can just accept where you're at and allow yourself to move through these things, because we're, I mean, I say we're not superheroes, I think we fucking well are, actually, in a lot of respects, but at the same
yeah,
time we are still human, and we've got this huge trauma
yeah,
happening around us, and with the person that who's yet another person who's not waking up to their family and friends and their life. And we know so many people that have had the jab, despite all our warnings, and trying our utmost to at least give some kind of sense of informed choice. There is that deeply unsettling feeling, and I think for a lot of us it's very buried, kind of out of necessity. Otherwise, how on earth do you get through the days? But yeah, you have those moments when you think, like, someone close or someone that you've known, it's happened to them. What do we do if we get that call? It's unthinkable. It's just unimaginable.
it
And
is
whether
this
you're
real, difficulty between kind of almost half expecting it, but even so it's like no,
you
no.
yeah, you don't want to, obviously, you don't want to be focusing on that and almost, bringing it into being. Not that, it's not that simple, but you have this fear of, oh my god, if I even look there, it could happen. At the same time, you don't want to be burying things to the point where they always come out in other ways that are not healthy. But it's just such a weird, it just feels like we're in this split. Like I said, you've got this not so-called normal life, and running alongside it is this absolute, it is like this dystopian sci-fi nightmare unfolding alongside it. And I was saying as well about, it's hard to, like, how do you adjust? Because looking at, the Matrix film, for example, it's like they're fighting, they've moved into this other reality completely, and so they're doing what needs to be done, and we have, it's kind of like we've got one foot in each reality, and so you're constantly being taught, like, you can't, for me personally anyway, I can't feel any real comfort in the
No,
world, if you want to call it that. All those little things that used to make me feel a bit safe and secure, or you just feel a bit content, and these things that bring you this well-being, I guess, this feeling of
yeah.
well-being, it have been stripped away, and it's such a struggle now. I have to really actively
I
seek them
think there
out.
is this bubbling under the surface. There is just, it doesn't sit well, everything that's happening, and you can't ignore it, and but you've to some extent got to, have times when you do ignore it so you can still function, because
Exactly.
it's
It's a huge
very
ask of
hard
Pete, and
to.
again, I think fucking well done. Like, anyone who's got a shred of sanity left that knows what this is all about, and is still able to just get up in the morning, and not only just get up in the morning, but to continue fighting, whilst leading this so-called normal life. Again, it does sort of make you realize how incredible human beings can be. And I was just reminded of, having spoken about the sad news and the fact that so many of us are, if we haven't lost someone very close to us, we certainly know people who have. There's definitely,
Yeah,
though,
there's
that
been
connection to, there's just
friends
no
of
getting
mine
away from.
who've lost
I couldn't
relatives
actually
as
count
well.
now how many, whether it's what family members or friends that have told me of their friends and family members. It's happening everywhere, and I think it's this is when the stands come into their own as well, because sometimes there have been people, oh, it's just like a support group, as if which it's not actually just that, but as if that's some kind of lesser thing. It's absolutely vital, because there's
It
no
is.
one just saying what.
Um I actually got the news while I was at my stand on
Oh.
Sunday, and I was all right for about 5 minutes, and then
Yeah.
it kind of sunk in, and I just burst into tears because,
Mm.
although I'd not seen her in years, and as I say, we weren't close, but
It's the
it was someone that
tragedy, though,
I've
isn't
known for
it?
a long time, and
Yeah.
it really hit me, and I did kind of take myself off for a minute, and just
Mm.
took a few minutes looking into the little lake where by we stand, and then I went back over, and one of my friends just kind of came and sort of gave me a big cuddle, and actually it didn't really need to say anything, just
No.
gave me a big hug, and actually that it made such a difference. And yeah, I
And
think,
that's,
there's that.
yeah, it can't be underestimated, because look, we don't want to be, everyone's gonna die, some kind of real, like,
No,
doom thing,
because to we do need to
because
keep perspective that
we
actually,
do.
that yes, there are a lot of studies, showing that there are the autoimmune problems, the heart problems,
Mm.
all kinds of other things that are resulting
Mm.
from these injections. We don't actually know. We don't know how it's going to play out. We don't know
No.
that it's going to affect everybody in the same way. We don't know that every single one is the same. And I think, we do need to keep a perspective of,
Mm.
we can't sit here and say everybody's going to die, because
No,
I
which
don't think that's the case.
I
But
don't believe
no,
anyway. But at the same
no,
time, we don't want to be burying our head in the sand, because already the number of people that have
yeah.
died or had
Oh, no, not on the
terrible,
laptop.
oh, she's back, terrible adverse reactions, that's a fact, it's happened, that's already way, 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 way too much and has a huge impact. So there is that element of how do you, I don't think you can really prepare, but I think this is when we need to be knitted together more than ever, so you don't fit when you do have these moments like we've been experiencing, when you're just like flailing in it, wondering what might happen, the things that have happened, going down that kind of spiral. You've got other people who can hold you while you're in that space, who understand, who get it. And that's another, it's one of the most important reasons for the stands. I've always said it, for me it was, other than in the very, very beginning, like making the physical stand of I am not moving from here, I'm showing that the whole energetic
We will
premise.
not
It
comply
was,
with your
but it,
ridiculous notion if you can't go to a park.
exactly, so I ain't having it. But more than that, really, was get the people together, and that's when you start to build things, and you've got that community, you've got, it's like another family, because
It
when you
is.
have got, I mean, yeah, like I said, I'm very lucky in most of my family are awake to this. There are others that are not, and it's like for everyone extremely upsetting. And but for people that don't, where you really can't talk about any of this stuff, it really is a lifeline. And also, yeah, even if you are fairly fortunate with the ones very closely around you, you still need that wider community where you do feel supported and understood. And when we do go through these things, we're there for each other, because we're in
Yeah.
uncharted territory. I mean, my God, like I said, it's just to try and, I don't know, just get some kind of fixing point on what's going on, and where we're at and where you're at, and so on and so on. It's just, sometimes all you can do is just, let yourself fall into the arms of others, and just let yourself be a mess or whatever, and know that, no, you'll be mopped up. You've got good people around you here that have also gone through it themselves, and you're there for them too.
Yeah. I mean, I can't speak highly enough of my soul family, the community of people that I stand with, and even those that might not come every week, but we've connected through the stands. They've
Yeah.
been at some point, and um we're quite a tight knit group down here, and I mean, as it's not just people use the phrase, oh, it's just a support group, but actually, as you say, like right now, I don't think there's one of us alive that don't need some level of support with what we're
Yeah.
living through right now. It is absolutely insane. But as well as that, we have got, it's kind of connected those of us that feel more driven to kind
Mm.
of be out there getting the message out. So there's we're quite active in that sense. And then we have our kind of social events and all that kind of thing. And it's it's a kind of community family that I've never had before.
Mm.
And it's this whole new feeling of just this acceptance, and this shared experience, this shared understanding and belief system, and kind of you know it it's quite special.
Yeah.
It's really quite special. And I think I've been through, I've spoken about this before, my whole life has been littered with periods like this where I'm an absolute mess. My head's a mess, like
Mm.
my emotions are a mess. I'm in a state, I'm struggling to kind of just function in the world. um and now it's different, and of course it's a different situation. We've not been through this before, but it's also a different situation in how supported I do feel. And it makes the world of difference. And to anyone in any of my friends that are watching, I love you.
Oh, same,
But yeah,
same. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. It's also, for those of us that are more activist minded, if that's what you want to call it, or really sort of out there for us, everyone has their days where it's just overwhelming. You feel like you're getting nowhere. It's all bad news. Nothing seems to be changing. That's when. So you can't just have one without the other. You will always need that, yeah, that shared bond, and the nurturing and supportive of others. And that's kind of, what are we fighting for? I keep saying this. What are we fighting for if not to preserve these amazing human beings and the relationships we have, and the things that make life worth living? I think it sometimes, I've noticed, and this tends to be with the people that do burn out as well, and suddenly go
yeah.
crashing off the scene for a while, because it's just become too much, because it's that kind of single-minded focus on the whole time, and that's the enemy. And there's almost like a losing sight of, yeah, but what are we fighting for? Because when you look at those things you're fighting with, that should bring joy. Yes,
Yeah.
that's what it's for. All those things that make you glad to be alive, that you wouldn't be experiencing if you weren't here. And it's a multitude of things. It's going to be
It
different
does
for
all come
everyone.
back to humanity and connection. Whatever, what we're fighting for is to keep um those physical connections, because everything is moving on. I was talking to my nan last night, and she was saying how disconnected the world seems, and
Yeah,
how
it
these
is.
days, there isn't that much community. People aren't connecting, people aren't meeting up, people aren't, behaving in the same way that they used to. And how sad it made her. And yeah, I think it's the
Well, look,
stands in that respect as well are very relevant. It's keeping that human connection, that human spirit, that people being together, because the joy of life is found quite often. I mean, obviously it comes back to us, but the in the external world, it comes from being with other people, and shared experiences, and all of that stuff. um
yeah, it does. And I mean, it's quite old fashioned, isn't it? To be meeting in a park, a group of you on a Sunday. Every Sunday, there's a cafe that Andy and I go to. And whenever we've been there, there's this group of old people. They're lovely, really funny as well. They're there every time. They told us they meet each other every day during the week. It's their
yeah.
kind of route. And it does sort of take you back to those days where people did things like that. They're in their 80s and even beyond, I think. And it's just such a lovely feeling. And it's that kind, they make the effort, and you do get something out of it. It's not about going to the park and standing around moaning and despairing at the state of the world for an hour or more. That's, don't get me wrong, we're all going to have those, absolutely, vent and get
Sometimes you do
out.
just need to
Of
get that
course
off
you
of your
do.
chest.
But that's not, the idea really is that you are physically connecting. And every time you make that effort, you're not just, oh, I just want to lay in bed. So do I, actually, a lot of the
Like
time.
almost every
I'm,
day for the God knows
it's
how
like,
many months, it's just been a case I just want to spend the day in bed, like
yeah.
just hide under the duvet and just.
But
But no,
when you do it, there's some kind of energetic reward, for want of a better
I
description,
always
really.
feel worse if I do just lay in bed. There are times when I've allowed myself to just go and lay down for half an hour and just and allow myself that space and that time to do that. But if I was to spend, all day or even all morning just doing that and didn't achieve anything, it does make me feel worse. So actually, I've learned now that, I've got whatever I'm feeling like, I've got to kind of get up and do something. And it doesn't have to be big, and it doesn't have to be, you
This is the
particularly
thing, yeah.
important, but
It's that reaching,
accomplishing something by
yeah,
the end of the
it's
day.
that
Otherwise,
reaching for something, and it can be minuscule. And again, there is a reward in it. Because you are refusing, even like I say, it could be tiny little thing that you just choose to just bring yourself out a little bit, and it's like you're defying all that low, dense, negative energy that wants to push you down, and you just make that little reach, for whatever it is, and that you will try to just take some kind of comfort in it, or be a little bit grateful. It's just tiny little things, steps that just sort of bring you out a bit, and it seems to come back threefold somehow, the energy. And I think it is in those moments when you are really tested to your bloody limit, and all you want to do is just go and lay in the fucking road or something. Just get me out of here. Just make it all end. That's it. And there's that tiny little spark. We've spoken about it before, and it's almost like it's beyond you, but there's something there. And you just showing that willing, without pressure, without, really putting yourself under. It's not that, but there's just this almost really like, okay, oh, and you start to see, because this is what they want, is for us to literally drown in misery. And this is why they do. When your nan's talking about community, it makes us sad that the community's gone. It's gone, or going, because there's been a concerted effort to destroy it
yeah,
over many, many, many years now. Obviously, with the advent of technology, and people being more and more screens and things. But I mean, it's so that really ramps up. But it's been going on for a long time now. People used to know each other in their street, and if you needed help, if there was anything going on, everyone would kind of look after each other's kids, and it was like a real community in that sense, like an extended family. And you still see this in other countries. Actually, it seems very alien to us now here in the West. But I've traveled a lot, and I've seen how you think, oh, they must all be related to it. No, they just everyone knows each other, and everyone can rely on each other. But that's been chipped away here. And why? Because when we're together, it's so much harder for them to control us. We must be divided. And so when we are meeting in the park, and it might seem like a really, insignificant little thing, it's to them, actually, because we're not just sitting at home doing our own thing in our own little tiny circle, whatever, which is what we're spending most of the time doing these days. You're actually doing something different, and you're meeting all kinds of people, because we've still got new people coming to
we're
our
still getting new
groups,
people as well.
and we're making those connections, and they don't want that. That's why they
Yeah.
came down on us so hard when we first started at police at all the parks. They got hold of the list, which is, I put it out there, it was never going to be hidden. But sure enough, they were going down the list and turning up,
We had
waiting for
them for
people.
weeks.
We did. And I mean, they didn't really do anything, but they were desperate. Hence, and especially when we saw the social, unsocial distancing, it was a very deliberate, symbolic think the same with the masks, all of this stuff. It's to divide, to create that distance physically and spiritually, emotionally between us. And so it's really important to keep this going, to not be steered into this insular kind of existence, because it's very persuasive. It's all psychological ops. It's all
Oh yeah,
stuff.
it is quite a lot easier not to deal with the world.
We've been, yeah, but I mean, we've been kind of, like I said, it's been
Yeah.
going on for many, 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 many years, decades and decades and decades. This hasn't, we're just seeing the kind of culmination of it all now, but we've been worked on. And a lot of people just, they don't even want to make a phone call now. It's the rather message. Before it would be, oh, I'd rather just phone than go and see someone. And now we've moved on to the next bit. And so it keeps going until we're so used to just being on our own and, you know, with a very small circle of people that we might see. But I think that's something that we need to go against. And when we do choose to go against what feels more comfortable now, even though it shouldn't, there's that payoff. It just seems to be how it works. So
There's definitely something to be said. You know, we are stronger together. Um,
yeah,
and and that, you know, you can be together chatting away online, but it's not the same as the being together, you know, person to person, and getting that energy exchange. Because when you can see facial expressions, when you can feel that I don't know how to
yeah.
describe it, but when
Well,
you're with someone,
it is
that it
energetic.
is the energy.
Yeah.
And yeah, feeling that connection to the world around you, it yeah, I think, yeah, definitely for me, it helps me go, yeah, okay, I'm good. Yeah, I keep moving forward. Sundays are my day that kind of lift me up.
Sanity
So
Sundays.
Sanity Sunday, definitely Sanity Sunday. Um, Reminds me of all the wonderful things about the world and the wonderful people that are in it, and you know, all the reasons that we're doing what we're doing. Um, I certainly won't be stopping anytime soon.
No, no, and that's it. If we can just, it's very easy, like I've found, to, you see all the bad news, you start to get into that spiral of hopelessness and just feeling a bit defeated, and how on earth is this ever going to turn out okay? Um, but meanwhile, there is this whole other side to life and to the world, like just the amazing places that are out there right now. We might not be there, but they're there. These pristine, gorgeous. You know, sometimes it's just enough knowing that things exist. So, you know, animals and just those things that lift you up. And just that's, yeah, that's what we're fighting for. All those little things and the big things as well, and all the ones in between that bring you joy, that make that you couldn't experience if you weren't here. So it's a reason to feel glad to be alive. And if you can just, when you're in a slump, like I have been, can
I
just
am.
fall over the edge and look and just find, you know, whatever it is. I often watch, we were talking about animal videos earlier,
Yeah,
cat
I
ones.
love cat videos.
It can be something like that, you know, just like a funny, all beautiful, you know, whatever it is, but you just get that, and it just lifts you out enough to be able to start getting onto a bit of an even keel. But this is the thing, I think, because we're in such madness, it takes a hell of a lot more effort
Yeah,
to get there. Things that you wouldn't have had to have really struggled before, not in the same way, um, because, you know, whatever troubles we've been going through in our lives before, it was, you know, generally not the whole world is going to hell in a handbasket scenario that we're in. I mean, it has been clearly, but you know, like we're actually
We weren't acutely
there
aware of
it
it,
is.
and yeah.
Yeah, you know, it was more the personal stuff. But when you're like looking at it's this sort of existential crisis, um, it can be a lot harder to pull yourself out. But it's still the same. It still works the same every time. Like, just we just have to watch where our focus is. Where what are we feeding with our energy? Does it drain us or does it feed us? And then we're in a
And
bit of a better position.
I do just think it's this we very much need to be a lot kinder to ourselves. For anyone that's like me,
Yeah.
that's not something that comes
Mhm.
easy. But it is unprecedented what we're going through, what we're facing, what we're dealing with is just chaos. It's utter chaos. And I think, you know, we're all literally doing whatever we can to kind of hang on in there, to keep going, to keep trying to make a difference, to keep trying to, you know,
Do what's
find
right.
the joy and the beauty that life does. It does still have so much to offer us, but sometimes it's rather obscured and takes a, you know, a little bit
Yeah,
more squinting to find. But it's there, and I think
it is.
you know, whatever, you know, you're having to do to try and, you know, get through it, like just praise yourself for doing it, because you know it's not easy. It's not easy. And but
Yeah,
we're all
and
there
we
doing our
are.
best.
And just remember that the it's all within you already. Actually, everything that we're seeking by looking out there, that's an illusion. It's all going on within here. And so when we can make peace with whatever it is um, that's going on, then the outer, it doesn't have that impact on you. You're not swayed. You're not if you're entirely focused on the external, your circumstances to bring you like your well-being, your safety and security, and all of these different things, you're in for a hell of a roller coaster, as we can attest, because you know we're all conditioned to do that, but actually you ain't going to get it from their true peace is there regardless, because you're operating from a completely different place. But that's conversation for another day probably, and we're nearly out of time actually,
Just about
aren't
to say the
we?
same thing.
My hot water bottle's gone cold. I need to go. Oh, I'll show you my t-shirt for today. I don't know if you can see that.
Yep. Freedom.
Hey, keep that in mind. Freedom and the search for truth continues, and as long as that's our intention, that is what we will find. That's what will unfold. But yeah, in the meanwhile, we just hold each other as best we can
Yes. Give
through the
yourselves a hug
tumultuous
or find
time.
someone to hug.
Yes,
Apparently, you got,
very
is
good
it
for
20
you.
seconds? 20 seconds is the length of a hug for it to have a real
Yeah.
benefit. Apparently, people hug for too short a period of time. I was reading that this week.
Make
So
your hugs longer.
hugs longer, hug
Yeah.
more, feel the love, give yourself some love, be kind to yourself and others. And yeah, thank
Mwah.
you to everybody around the world doing their bit.
Absolutely. We'll see you very soon. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.